I've been planning to read The Wheel of Time for a long while now, and I've been putting it off because of what a large commitment it is. But when I started this channel, I decided that 2021 would be the year that I actually started my journey through this epic fantasy series. Now, I doubt I'd finish the whole series within this year. I think I can get reasonably far in. I'd really like to eventually make videos on the Wheel of Time world and characters like I do for the Cosmere, so it's definitely a goal of mine to finish this series. I finished Eye of the World a few weeks ago, and I think I've taken enough time to let it all sink in. So with all of that said, I'd like to welcome you to my review of The Wheel of Time Book 1, The Eye of the World. Character. I think that Robert Jordan has to be one of the best character writers in the fantasy genre. I'm a huge fan of well-written characters, and it's the first thing I look for in a book I'm reading. I always look for well-written characters because of how essential they are to my enjoyment as a reader. Luckily, Robert Jordan delivers this in spades. There are about 5 to 6 primary characters in this first book, and where other fantasy books may have had them all feeling a bit too similar to one another, Robert Jordan manages to make each character feel unique. Rand feels like his own person and completely separate from Perrin or Mat. Now, we only get viewpoint chapters from Rand, Perrin and Nynaeve, but I've been told that the subsequent books after this one gives all of the other Emond's Fielders viewpoints. So I'm confident that those who didn't get viewpoint chapters in this book will be even more fleshed out later on. I also have to throw it out there, but Moiraine is just an awesome character, and I have a feeling we'll see a lot of development with her in future books. I also love how Perrin is a careful and considerate character compared to Mat, who just acts without thinking. And Nynaeve probably has the strongest and most forceful personality of all of them, though at times it did grate on me a little. The characters are the star of the show for me here, and I would be an idiot to give it anything less than a 9 out of 10. The only reason it's not a 10 out of 10 is because there were a few moments that some of the characters annoyed me, but these moments were few and far between. Plot. The plot of The Eye of the World is slightly lacking in my opinion, though not because Robert Jordan didn't know how to write a compelling plot. My issues with it are more with the actual events that unfold and the fact that you can tell a lot of it is mostly set up for the rest of the series. I don't want to get into spoilers, so I'll keep it vague. The main issue I have is that all the protagonists kind of feel more like they're being dragged along by the plot rather than them dragging the plot itself. A good protagonist takes action, and the plot is the result of the action that they take. In Eye of the World, the protagonists are whisked away and taken on a journey that's wholly out of their hands. Now, I get it, there are reasons that it was done this way, and I have no doubt that later books will see this turned around, which is why I won't let it affect my opinion on it too much. The reason it's done this way is justified, even though I would have preferred it done another way. And the fact that a lot of the plot is clearly set up for later also makes things feel a bit less coherent than I would have liked. That said, what Robert Jordan did is still masterfully executed, and I can't knock his absolute skill in this department. So I'd have to give the plot a 6 out of 10. Above average for sure, but dragged down by some issues that are clearly inherent to being the first book in a very long series. World building. Okay, so I'm a sucker for good world building, and sometimes a book can either win me over or lose me completely based on how well the world building is done. And to my utter joy, Robert Jordan absolutely nails it with the world building here. The whole world feels so real and lived in that it's hard for me to remind myself that it doesn't really exist. There's an ancient history that ties in with the current plot, and each place has a story behind it. Different cultures actually feel quite unique, like they could reasonably exist within a world like this. But then you have the non-human races as well. Now, I'm usually very skeptical of non-human races in fantasy because of how easily an author can muck it up. It's very easy to fall in the trap of making the non-humans all the same, but it seems that Robert Jordan has managed a level of nuance here that many fail to hit on the head. Loial, for example, is apparently seen as a rash and over-eager Ogier amongst these people. But through the eyes of our human characters, he's still very much not human in the way he acts, and we're often left wondering just how different the other Ogier must be if Loial is a young and over-eager one. It makes us realize just how different the other race is, but also lets us realize that even amongst those people, there are individuals like Loial who aren't necessarily exactly like the others. We have yet to meet any other Ogier, so it could still end up being a problem later on, but things seem very promising. And moving on from that, we have the mythology of the world. There are stories and myths from ages past, and they all sound so much larger than life. There are places and powers of legend that make you wonder just how different the world must have been back then. But then you realize that stories probably change and warp things over time, so a lot of things could be quite off from the truth. I think it's safe to say that I've fallen in love with the world building here, and I should probably give it a score before I just ramble on for another 20 minutes. So I think it comes as no surprise that I give the world building in Eye of the World a well-deserved 10 out of 10. Very few books manage to reach this level of world building, and I'm so excited to see where things go from here. Magic. So I'm going to come right out of the gate and say that I really enjoyed the magic system in this book. And granted, we didn't see much of it, but I still think what we did see is an amazing example of magic done right. Now, my first impression was that it was a soft magic system, but as things progressed and as more and more rules to the magic system was revealed, I'm led to believe that it's actually more of a hard magic system. I think the reason why I initially thought of it as a soft magic system is more due to the fact that the story is told through the eyes of characters who aren't able to use magic and who have never really seen it used before. Now, with the direction the story seems to be going in subsequent books, I have a strong feeling we'll soon come to know the intricacies of the rules surrounding the magic system. So in all likelihood, it's quite a hard magic system with some softer elements mixed in. I also really enjoyed how the magic was linked to gender and how that affected not only the world building, but also the characters and the overall plot to no small degree. It speaks volumes as to how much thought and effort Robert Jordan must have put into the magic system, and I cannot commend him enough for this masterful execution. I think it's easy to say that the magic in this book deserves a solid score of 8 out of 10, and the only reason it's not higher is purely because of how much there clearly is that we don't know yet, but a very good score nonetheless. Structure. The structure of the novel as a whole is a bit of a mixed bag for me. The structure is composed mostly of the prose, the pacing, and the way all the different elements came together to form the whole. Now, I would say that the prose is absolutely some of the best I've read in a long while. I'm a huge fan of colourful and descriptive prose, and I don't think that anyone can argue that Robert Jordan doesn't deliver masterfully crafted prose in every line, so I definitely like the prose. The pacing, however, is something I'm less of a fan of. I think that the biggest issue I actually have with the book is just how much of a slow burn it is. Now, don't get me wrong, I have no issues with books that are slow burns. I am, after all, a Stormlight Archive fan. But this book is a very, very slow burn, and then consider that it's a massive book as well, and I can definitely see why some people can't make it through the whole thing. Now, that isn't to say there are redundancies in the book. Despite the slow pace and the size of the book, I actually wouldn't cut any parts of it. Each part has its purpose, and removing or shortening any part would be a detriment to the book as a whole. But it is quite slow and it can feel plodding at times. But overall, I'd have to say that things come together very well, and that the different elements all fit together to make a comprehensive and conclusive whole. The world building fits with the magic, and the plot fits with the characters. It all comes together very well, and nothing feels out of place. So, taking that into consideration, I would give the structure a score of 7 out of 10. The slow pace does bring it down a bit, but overall it's still a very well structured book, and definitely deserves all the praise it gets. The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan is an amazing book with strong characters, amazing world building, a strong magic system, and a solid plot. And while I did have some issues with the different aspects of the book here and there, I cannot fault the amazing job the author did with the execution of all the different parts. Even from the first book, it's clear why so many modern authors name Robert Jordan as one of their biggest influences in their writing. So taking it all into consideration, I'm happy to give the first Wheel of Time book, The Eye of the World, a very good score of 8 out of 10. Absolutely one of the best introductory books to an epic fantasy series out there, and I'm all in for more of this awesome series. I can't wait to jump into the next book and to experience the amazing world and characters again. But, as I always say, that has all just been my opinion. What did you think of Eye of the World? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, guys. My name has been Raven, and I will see you next time. Take care, everybody.